When it comes to product that you hold in your hands, weight has always been a sign of quality. Like the heft of a vintage film camera or the reassuring mass of a mechanical watch, being impressed by a product's weight is a reminder that some things are actually built to last. In keyboards, weight plays a similar role and has long been a mark of quality and something that people chase in pursuit of their endgame. QWERTY Keys has leaned into that idea this time around with their latest release, the Neo80 CU. Calling this keyboard heavy really doesn't do it justice. The Neo80 CU weighs a remarkable 4.5 kilograms or nearly 10 pounds, making it by far the heaviest board that I've ever used. It's been an interesting 2 weeks with this board, and I've learned a few things about myself when it comes to keyboard weight preferences. What does weight actually bring to a keyboard, and what are you trading off to have something this substantial on your desk? Let's take a closer look. The Neo80 CU is the latest entry in QWERTY Keys' higher-end CU line. Like the Neo60, 65, and 75 CU variants that came before it, the solid copper or brass bottom is at the heart of what makes this board special. The entire bottom case is carved out of a solid chunk of copper or brass, depending on your choice of material. When you compare this to the more typical aluminum shell bottom case, the density of the solid bottom case virtually eliminates any hollowness, ping, and excess resonance of the board, giving it an incredibly clean sound signature. And as you'd expect from QWERTY Keys, customization is a big part of this kit's appeal. There are 9 anodized top case colors, 7 external weight finishes, 3 PCB options, 5 plate options, and, of course, your choice between a copper or brass bottom case, giving you near endless ways to make the board your own. One of the more interesting additions this time around is the new PEI plate, which is a plastic I've never seen offered as a plate material before. PEI is a naturally translucent amber plastic that's said to produce a brighter, crisper sound signature than a more traditional polycarbonate plate. QWERTY Keys didn't send me that one, so I can't speak from experience, but they did send me this new FlexCut aluminum plate that also seems new to the Neo CU line. It's intricately machined with glossy chamfers along the edges, relief cuts across the layout, and even a set of spring-like connectors under the spacebar to help with consistency. All of these details soften the typing feel and smooth out some of aluminum's sharper acoustic properties, making it a very balanced option and the plate I chose to build the board with. Moving on to the overall design of the Neo80 CU, there's a clear space-inspired theme running throughout the board. The most obvious nod to that is this planet motif above the arrow keys, paired with what looks like an orbiting moon. Viewed at certain angles, the contrasting brushed and polished finishes on the gold plate suggest the curvature of a planet seen from orbit, which is an interesting detail that really rewards you for looking closer. From the back, the solid copper bottom case becomes the focal point. It contrasts sharply with the anodized aluminum top and the external weight, and for me, this is the board's most beautiful face. The multi-tone aesthetic here puts your material choices on full display, with a clean groove separating top and bottom, and gentle contouring where the weight meets the copper shell. The copper itself curves slightly inward, offering a natural grip point when moving the board, which is a small ergonomic touch that also elevates the keyboard's design. Viewed from the side, that groove separating top from bottom wraps around and extends into this slight S-curve. The gently rounded copper base breaks up the typical box and wedge profile, adding visual complexity while still maintaining a very clean silhouette. And flipping the board over, the external weight takes center stage, with the familiar compass motif across the Neo CU series displayed prominently as a carved-out emblem against the weight. Given the general space theme of this board though, I'm very tempted to interpret this as the planetary rings of Saturn, but maybe that's just me. The copper bottom case extends slightly into the front face of the board too and adds a subtle point of interest to what's usually the least considered angle of a board. All things considered, I think this is the most beautiful board QWERTY Keys has released in the Neo CU line so far. The contrast of materials and the subtle curves of the board come together and makes this a stunning board from every angle. Now, as striking as the exterior is, there's a lot to be said about what's under the hood as well. You'll notice right away that the internal chamber of the board includes a set of partitioned ridges built into the case. These help dampen resonance and reduce hollowness, which is especially useful in foamless builds where there's a lack of dampening material in the acoustic chamber of the board. Along with the sheer weight and density of the board, these ridges are another reason for why the Neo80 CU sounds so clean even in foamless builds. Force brake pads have also been integrated into the board out of the box, with one placed at every contact point between the top and bottom cases to further negate potential resonance. Magnetic pogo connectors are employed here for wireless connection of the PCB and lighting module, but I do want to point out that QWERTY keys went with a more traditional screw-based case enclosure design here, rather than the ball catch system which the original Neo80 first introduced me to. While I can't say for sure why that decision was made, I think this mainly comes down to safety. The substantial weight of the board would likely push the limits of a ball catch enclosure, so defaulting to a screw-based design should ensure better long-term stability and also avoid any risk of the board falling apart during handling. In terms of mounting options, the Neo80 CU offers 3 different choices this time around. New to the Neo80 CU is a poron gasket mount option with poron foam cutouts that slot into these grooves cut into the top and bottom cases. These pieces of foam are friction fit into these grooves without the need for adhesives, and it was pretty easy for me to keep them in place. For those who prefer more traditional mounting options, there's the inclusion of silicone gaskets as well as additional screws for top mounting the plate to the top case. All in all, after spending the past couple of weeks with the Neo80 CU, I've come away really impressed by this overall package. Not just the weight or the material options, but how the different pieces come together into a coherent, beautiful design. The board's unique sound profile is one of the standout features here. The solid copper bottom case of the board gives it an exceptionally clear sound signature that accentuates the switch and plate material options of your build. It's a distinctive acoustic experience you won't find in lighter boards, and one of the more compelling reasons to consider this Neo80 CU. That said, I do realize that ideal keyboard weight is purely a matter of taste. At 4.5 kilograms, this is by far the heaviest board I've ever used, and while the stability and premium impression it brings are undeniable, it also makes the board a bit of a commitment. It doesn't move, which is great when you're typing, but also not so great when you're trying to reorganize your desk or unplug a cable. I really appreciate that QWERTY keys included this subtle groove along each side of the board to help with grip, though I personally would have liked something a bit deeper to get a better grip of the board without getting my fingerprints all over the polished weight. I also understand the move to a screw-based enclosure, especially at this weight. The ball catch system likely wouldn't have held up over time. But that change does make this board a little less flexible for users who like to experiment with different builds, or even newcomers to the space who aren't quite sure yet what exactly they like. And that's why I think the Neo80 CU is best suited for someone who's a bit more experienced and knows exactly what they're looking for. If you're chasing the specific acoustic properties of a super heavy board or want something a bit more luxurious that acts as a permanent fixture on your desk, this is an amazing option. As always, the value for money is genuinely exceptional for the Neo80 CU. Similarly kitted keyboards often start well above the $500 mark, while the Neo80 CU comes in at less than half of that with prices starting at $210. In terms of sheer materials, machining, and finishing quality, there's no doubt that this Neo80 CU punches way above its price point. But for me personally, it's actually the overall design that wins me over, more so than the significant weight. The space-inspired details and the contrast of different materials and finishing techniques really makes this keyboard a beautiful object worthy of being the center point of your desk. For those who choose the copper bottom, it will also patina over time, which will make this board feel even more personal to you the longer you own it. So while I don't think everyone needs to chase the heaviest board possible, the Neo80 CU finds a really good sweet spot. It gives you a taste of what a heavy high-end custom keyboard can feel and sound like without the usual $500 price tag. And so those are my thoughts on the Neo80 CU. I've also left a few different sound tests at the end of the video for you to compare how the board sounds with different mounting styles. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.